Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to a new video. And today, me and Tristan are going to be watching Code 19. A viewer actually sent me an email essentially recommending that we watch this. So shout out to you, Jonathan. Thanks for sending the email. I don't even know what this is. I've never heard of this before, nor have I seen it. And Tristan hasn't either. So this is going to be something new for the both of us. So let's get right into it.
This is in the Quran.
Yeah, that's in the Quran. Yeah, because God says, think for yourself. Use your rationale. Use your brain.
Interesting.
The most important news in the history of the world.
You have brought the key, the mathematical code of Quran.
We have a tremendous responsibility, and with it, there is tremendous blessing that will include us in the elite of the elite.
The first physical evidence ever for the existence of God.
Yo, before we get into it, what do you think it is? Code 19.
Okay, so it's a documentary, so it
It's
won't
a
be
documentary.
it should be an entertaining video, I think.
Something.
Informational-wise.
So it says something that hasn't been discovered in the email by Jonathan. It says something that hasn't been discovered from 610 up until 1974.
So it hasn't been discovered
In
until
that long.
1974.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's. Can we search the biggest events in 1974?
Yeah.
See, I like this kind of style where it makes it very interesting, like solving like puzzles in a sense. President Nixon? No, okay. Maybe this could have shown how corrupt, like in a sense,
He
but
resigned.
just very corrupt people in the in that kind of higher.
Rubik's Cube, Turkish invasion.
Maybe search up. Well, it's gonna spoil if we specifically do that. But I remember how massive this was. I was just talking to my dad about this. The
When Nixon-
Watergate scandal. Yeah.
It's Nixon
It
took
was
Was
huge.
it 1971 or 1974 when Nixon took gold off of that was pegged to the U.S. dollar, because that's how it used to be.
Well, that's
I
how
don't
we
know
got it right away.
But
Yeah,
I don't
it was
think
around
that has
this time.
anything to do with it. What would that have to do with like?
I think
religion?
because this scandal was like a big thing to realize the government system's corrupt, in a sense. So I wonder if anything got to do with that, because obviously there's higher ups
Oh,
above
maybe.
the government. So it might be like this was like exposed to public. Because what else before that was exposed to public about the government? Yeah, there's probably those woke ones throughout history that like thought, oh, the Roman emperors or this or that, whatever. But not too many people had really much information on it. This was huge, went everywhere.
I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with that.
Muhammad Ali, whatever was watching.
Yeah, I have no idea. I actually have no idea. Code 19.
The Quran is the only scripture that has remained intact since its revelation in the year 610. Almost every other scripture, including the Old and New Testament and those of the Hindus and Buddhists, have either been lost or altered, effectively leaving us with the writings of humans who profess to know the original scripture, and this makes the Final Testament already stand out. Because of this unique feature alone, the Quran is also the only scripture worth subjecting to the highest forms of scrutiny to assess its divine authorship, and that's something the Quran invites us to do. It's the only book in the world with a self-proclaimed phenomenon that no power on earth can produce something like it. Even without this miracle, any sincere truth seeker should appreciate what's made the Quran so special and appealing to humanity for the past 1400 years. It represents the direct verbatim word of God. It's the final scripture sent to humanity, and thus offers answers to the most crucial questions. It's neither time
The 19th Surah. I think it has something to do with the 19th Surah. Chapter Mary. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with Jesus. Code 19. Maybe they found something to do with Mary, like in the world. Maybe some old like artifact or like historical document. Or
Was this the last video when you said, Hail Mary, Mother of God? And I was like, holy shit.
what about that?
Was that the last video posted?
Yeah.
I sent you an email.
Yeah.
nor region bound. It uniquely speaks to every generation and individual. Regardless of background, we learn that the key for anyone to access the Quran is in fact sincerity. It's free of any nonsense or contradictions, which is significant considering the ignorance and superstition back then. Majority of its verses are extremely clear and to the point, largely thanks to the extreme precision of classical Arabic, along with the simplicity of the message itself. The book is very consistent in tone and style, which explains how tens of millions have been able to memorize the entire text. It proclaims profoundly simple and intuitive messages. That we must worship God alone, abandon any idols besides God, know that God is doing everything, kill our egos, not blindly follow our parents or ancestors, learn from the mistakes of the past generations, be prepared to be tested and distinguished from others, be patient and steadfastly persevere, not follow any religious laws not from God, examine all words and follow the best, not ignore God's divine signs and proofs, not get stuck in small, irrelevant religious details, not divide into sects, and so on.
You guys are against LGBTQ and all that shit, right?
Yeah, well, we don't think it's right.
Quran, okay.
Yeah.
Does it ever talk about it in the Quran? Changing genders?
Probably not. I don't know about changing genders, but it probably mentioned some stuff there about like you're not supposed to be with like men, or not supposed to be with men, women are not supposed to be with women. But they do say that once you get married and you find a partner, that's completing like half your faith. You complete half your deen, you complete half your faith. Yeah.
Two hitmen, and they're about to execute someone. And the dude is hiding in the bathroom with a gun, and he waits for his moment, he kicks the door, and at point blank range, he shoots 7 shots and misses. And then the hitmen kill the guy and then execute the person they were. Then they're at the diner, and they're having a conversation. And Samuel L. Jackson's character is saying, "This was divine intervention. We shouldn't be here right now." And John Travolta's character is saying, "No, the guy's just a bad shot. You're reading too much into this. This is the fact of life. You're going to see 2 people. They're going to experience the exact same thing. One is going to be like, look, statistically, it's not a big deal. You guys are reading too much into this. Someone else is going to look at it and be like, no, dude, there's no way this happened haphazardly."
When these numbers consistently hit that target, bullseye, that's how we know it's not just coincidence.
It resonates with me. I always say that I question everything. I think I've said in a few videos.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's like, because now, well, just with only 3 minutes we've watched, obviously, it talks about like how there's 2 people in a sense, right? I've always been saying like, oh yeah, there's only good and bad, there's only light and dark, there's only, kind of that, meaning that there's 2 sides, right? And then I talked about in the last video too about 2 sides. I was like, look, we're hearing from from someone who makes like these Islam type of videos. But what about someone who makes like a Christian video talking about it?
Yeah.
Right? So I wonder if that's like kind of something got to do with this.
That's not what he's saying though.
Oh, okay.
What he's saying is the guy popped out and he shot all his shots. 7 shots.
No, but then the other guy says, yeah, it's not a big deal. It just happened. He sucks at shooting. But the other guy's like, nah, there's a meaning behind it.
Yeah, divine intervention. Like God protected us for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like he's saying there's 2 sides to the coin, how you can interpret it, but like nothing is a coincidence. That's what they're saying. Like everything happens for a reason.
No, but
essentially.
I'm saying more on the email side why he said it would resonate with me. So I'm curious if that's what this thing is about.
The target that we need to hit was established in the Quran by God. The target was given to us. It's not shooting the wall and then painting a target around it. The target was already there.
This has all been embedded inside the Quran for 1400 years.
It's a very, very specific prophecy. It's a very strongly worded prophecy. This is a warning, wake-up call to everybody.
A miracle, by definition, is something that's highly improbable. That's the definition of a miracle. And miracles are what were created, or what God sent for people to have certainty.
They say, how come no miracle came down to him from his Lord? Say, the future belongs to God. So wait, and I am waiting along with you.
Previous generations were converted to believe in God by means of miracles. However, modern man cannot believe in God because of these. He has watched men walk on the moon. He is presented daily with the latest technological marvel. He has come across too many false claims, fake miracles, and fake prophets. He has become very cynical, especially when it comes to ancient myths and beliefs. Today's man needs something substantial. He needs an ultimate miracle. All the miracles that were supposed to have converted man over the ages were limited to a particular geographical location or a time period. By definition, an ultimate miracle would be something that is perpetual, not limited to a certain century or geographical location. It would be for all of the people to see all of the time. It would be something that is physical, touchable, examinable, verifiable, and irrefutable.
All of us, at one time or another, have been compelled to contemplate creation.
Questions such as the purpose of our lives and the existence of God have been pondered upon from time immemorial. There have always been those who choose to interpret the harmony and order of the cosmos as a fluke of nature, but a closer look gives clear evidence of a design, and thus a designer. The discoveries being made on all frontiers are making this picture clearer by the day. Most contemporary scientists are agnostic. If they profess their religious belief, they keep their science and religion in totally separate compartments of their lives. The conventional scientific view considers mathematics as the foremost example of a field where reason is supreme, where emotions do not enter, where we know with certainty, and know that we know, where the truths of today are truth forever. This view considers religion, by contrast, a realm of pure belief, unaffected by reason. Therefore, in the view of the scientist, all religions are equal, because all have been equally incapable of verification. For any subject to be a proven fact, be it a law of physics or the 10 Commandments from the Torah, proof needs to be given. Proof basically means that a statement is true beyond a shadow of a doubt. It is validation and certification, the seal of authority, the mathematical power, and the electric voltage that vitalizes the static assertion about any subject. Proof is thus a celebration of the power of pure reason. The lack of a modern miracle contradicts the idea that God is the most wise. It also gives the impression that God is not adaptable to our higher levels of thinking. Surely, if God really is what he tells us he is, he should be able to give us ample proof. A quick overview of the Quran before we go any further. Overall, the Quran contains 114 chapters and 6,346 verses, which was revealed gradually over a period of 23 years during the lifetime of the Prophet. And interestingly, over a
So how many verses are in each one?
Verses in the whole Quran, 6,346. This is the amount of verses in each chapter. So the first one has 7 lines, so 7 verses. Surah Fatiha, then Surah Baqarah has 286, and it goes down. All the way down. So every chapter has this many verses in them. That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So that's what he's basically showing here. He's combining all the numbers of this together, which equals 6,346. Yeah.
Period of 23 years during the lifetime of the Prophet. An interesting dynamic to this book is the order of chapters. They're actually chronologically different from how they were initially revealed. For example, the first revelation is found in chapter 96. The second revealed chapter, the pen, is positioned as chapter 68, and so on. This structure is based on specific divine instructions that were given to the Prophet that God intended for the world, and that is what we have today. Another thing to note is that back then there were no numerals as we know today. Instead, the letters of the alphabet served as numbers, and this system actually predates the Quran, and so gives us another objective or fixed property besides the obvious parameters like words and letters that we can use when analyzing the text. For instance, the word 1 in Arabic has a value of 19, which brings us to the significance of 19.
The word lung?
No, the word 1.
Oh, 1.
Or the number 1 has a value of 19.
There was this thing. It was like a something calculator. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like a geometry something calculator. I have to remember the name, but it'll click in. I'm curious. I want to search on it.
Every book has a core message. And the core message we find throughout God's scriptures, including the Old, New, and Final Testament, is that God is one, that he should be worshipped alone. And we find in many ways that 19 signifies that. For one, it's a prime number, which aside from being difficult to work with, means it's also indivisible. You can only divide it by 1 or itself. 19 also contains the first and last digit, 1 and 9, thus representing the first and last, the beginning and the end. It also has a digital root of 1. But there's also other signs in nature. the Metonic cycle, length of a pregnancy, or even the orbital period of Halley's Comet, and many more. Overall, 19 is significant and befits the label of being God's signature. But one more thing before we move on. There's an interesting phenomenon in the Quran, never found in any other book. Out of 114 chapters in the Quran, 29 are prefixed with 14 sets of random letters at first sight. Exactly half the Arabic alphabet participate in these initials, which range from 1 to 5 letters per set. The significance of these letters remained a divinely guarded secret for 14 centuries. Traditional scholars unanimously claim that the true wisdom behind these letters are unknown. But since the Quran's miracle was destined to come after the Prophet, this prolonged uncertainty was in accordance with God's will, preserved for the technologically sophisticated generations. The very existence of these initials hint at a mathematical code. The phrase, "these are the miracles of this book," is found only in conjunction with these Quranic initials.
A unique phenomenon that you will never find in any other literary work. And these letters remained mysterious for 1400 years. Scholars and scientists of all kinds have been looking at these initials, ALM, and the other initials in Quran, trying to figure out what they mean, and they could not do it. The computer did it recently.
Saying this about God, but
yes, gods are the servants of the societies and the cultures that create them. They have no existence apart from the societies that give
even if it is proven to you.
Well, I'd like to see somebody prove it to me.
I'm glad you like to see it because I can show it to you.
Messages from outer space.
Absolutely.
To absolutely prove the creation is a fact.
Yes, sir.
That was Dr. Rashad Khalifa, the man who discovered Code 19. He was born in Cairo, Egypt, in 1935. He then moved to the United States in 1959, where he completed his master's and PhD in biochemistry, and soon naturalized as a US citizen. But in 1968 is when the story really begins.
I read the English translations of the Quran, and I didn't like any of them.
At this point, Rashad realized that the existing English translations did not present the truthful message of God's final testament. For example, he noticed that verse 45 of chapter 39, which conveys a core principle of mentioning God alone, was distorted in almost every translation he came across.
Yusuf Ali outright refused to translate this verse correctly. He refused to use the word alone, which he translated correctly in other places in the Quran. But when it came to when God alone is mentioned, he changed alone to the one and only, which doesn't mean alone. Alone is a very specific word, and you can see the other translations squirm around it.
Some of them actually distorted the basic doctrines of the Quran. And that was serious enough to encourage me to translate the Quran myself for my own children. I did it just for local consumption.
But while working on this translation, he made a pledge to God to not move from one verse to the next until he fully understood what each verse meant.
However, because I'm a chemist and not a professional religionist, I decided not to move from one verse to the next unless I knew exactly what every word and every verse meant.
And almost right away, he stumbled upon something in this book that's been unexplained since its revelation: the mysterious letters, which we'll get into shortly. But it was this very curiosity which then prompted him to enter the Quran into a computer for the first time.
After many attempts and many failures, I decided to put the whole Quran in the computer. I didn't know what to look for. So I had the computer count every letter in every surah. And the objective was to look for any mathematical connections or any mathematical pattern that involves these letters.
PJ 6696. PJ 7. PJ 5. You gotta be kidding.
This is one of the first books published by Rashad in 1973 that attempts to unravel some of the mystery behind these initials in the Quran, to try and see if they have any mathematical significance. And sure enough, they did.
He said that, look, these letters in the respective chapters happen in a frequency that you wouldn't expect if this wasn't a biased text.
The January 73 publication in the most popular magazine in the Middle East, after Sa'ad, had to do with the proportion of the initials. Qaf, for example, the letter Q in chapter 50, that chapter had the highest proportion of the letter Q. Surah Sad had the highest proportion of the letter Sad. Surah Nun had the highest proportion of Surah Nun, Alif Lam Mim, and so on. Every surah had the highest proportion of its initials, except Surah Yasin had the least, the exact opposite. And that was the whole article.
But the problem was he didn't know why the frequencies of these initials in their respective chapters were unusually higher than expected. But the fact that he was able to demonstrate any mathematical significance was still quite significant, as it opened up a new avenue of exploration in understanding the Quran's design, and that perhaps there was more to these letters than meets the eye. Something interesting happened in the year 1974, and it has to do with the number 19 found in chapter 74. It turns out the missing piece of the puzzle was there all along, hidden in plain sight. And it helps that chapter 74 has always historically been one of the least or most vaguely explained chapters. The number is mentioned around the middle of the chapter, and unlike most numbers, which are adjectives in combination with an object, here it's the numerical function of 19 that is emphasized. And we'll get more into this prophecy later as it gets quite deep, but it's worth appreciating a few things. First of all, the year itself, 1974, corresponding to the fact that 19 is in chapter 74. Secondly, the very first statement in this chapter, "O you hidden secret, come out and mourn," has a numerical value of 1974. And here's perhaps the most fascinating miracle of its own, that from 610, the revelation of the Quran, up to 1974, are 1,406 lunar years, and 1,406 is 19 times 74.
This is the year, this is the surah, this is the number, and I say, what's he talking about? Because I'm not thinking of exactly when the miracle was discovered, because I started the research in 1968, and this was going on, and Sammy was saying 1974 is the year. And I thought he's off by a few years, but turns out he's exactly right. January 1974.
Prepare for the shock. The document, the Quran, contains an exquisitely sophisticated control of letters across chapters, within chapters, in combination of letters between words, in total number of sentences, in total number of words, all interlocking with one another, rendering it impossible to duplicate, even with the most powerful computers.
And the common denominator that binds all these mathematical, physical facts is the number 19.
Well, let's get into some of the basic facts, starting with some of the more easily understandable ones. The most easy one is the number of chapters in this book. It's 114, 19 times 6. The next key parameter would be the number of verses, and when you add up all ones, the most easy one is the number of chapters in this book. It's 114, 19 times 6. The next key parameter would be the number of verses, and when you add up all these numbers here, you get 6,234. But interestingly, there's exactly 112 verses in the Quran that are not assigned a number. It's these opening statements you find at the beginning of the Quranic chapters. They're basically counted as verse 0, except for two places, chapter 1 and 27. It's an interesting dynamic, and we'll get into why it's special, but for now, we can establish that the total verses in the Quran are 6,346, or 19 times 334, and also the digits that make up this number adds to 19. Moving on, the opening statement of the Quran would clearly be one of the most important phrases to assess.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful.
It's a very pleasant verse to read. However, Code 19 now offers deeper insight into the wisdom behind why God chose this phrase.
The first item of this miracle is that the first verse in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, consists of 19 Arabic letters. Here they are: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 letters.
The very first thing you read in the Quran contains exactly 19 letters. It's the opening statement for the Quranic chapters. This is clearly very significant, but it gets even deeper.
Every word, there are 4 words here, and every word is mentioned in the Quran a number of times, which is consistently a multiple of 19.
That is a huge claim, that when you break down this opening statement to the 4 words that make it up, name, God, gracious, and merciful, that they all occur throughout the Quran in multiples of 19. At this point, you're encompassing the entire book of more than 150,000 words. A very basic probability assessment of just this isolated fact is already, for all practical purposes, 0.
And you can see for yourself, anybody can. These are factual observations. It is not an opinion. It's not nobody's. It is nobody's opinion. The word ism, which means name, is mentioned in the Quran 19 times exactly.
Here are all the verses with name. Traditional indexes predating Code 19 also confirm this fact.
The second word, Allah, is mentioned in the whole book 2,698 times, or 19 times 142.
Rashad was a bit creative with how he illustrated this fact. If you read his translation of the Quran, every time the word God is mentioned, you'll find it in full caps and bold, with a sum at the bottom of each page of how many times the word God has occurred so far, and on the right side you'll also find the sum of the verse numbers wherever God occurs, a completely different parameter, which also turns out to be a multiple of 19.
The third word, Ar-Rahman, is mentioned in the whole Quran 57 times, or 19 times 3.
Here are all the verses with Ar-Rahman, the most gracious.
The last word, Ar-Rahim, is mentioned in the whole book 114 times, or 19 times 6.
And finally, here are all the verses with Ar-Rahim, the most merciful. That wraps up the total counts for each of the 4 words of the opening statement, and we find that they all occur independently throughout the Quran in multiples of 19. And the sum of their multiplication factors are also divisible by 19.
If you go to Surah 9, you will notice that this surah does not have a basmala. It says here that this surah does not have Bismillah.
Every surah begins Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qul A'udhu Birabbin Nas. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qul A'udhu Birabbil Falaq. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qul Huwallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Tabbat Yada. Every chapter of the Quran begins with this most beautiful formula. For some mysterious reason, Surah Tawbah hasn't got it. Hasn't got it. Any Quran in the world. You go to China, you get a Quran, it's not there. You go to Nigeria, you find a Quran, it's not there. He's created a problem for himself. Can't you see? He said, I'll fix you up with 19. Now he's got 114 surahs and only 113 bismillahs. And 113 is not a multiple of 19, is it? It's not.
But we find that this missing Bismillah is made up in Surah number 27. So if you go to Surah number 27, you will see that we have 2 Bismillahs. And there is one Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim at the beginning, like every other surah except Surah 9. And there is an extra one in the middle of the surah, right here, in verse 30. You'll see another Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Now the beauty of any performance is you create a problem and you solve the problem. Whether it is in mathematics, acrobatics, aeronautics, aquatics, create a problem, solve a problem. We're in the circus, in mathematics, in anything. You create a problem, solve a problem. And the manner in which one solves the problem, we applaud. This is great. This guy is great. He did it.
And this restores the number of this important opening statement to 114, or 19 times 6. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, and 19. The first revelation in Quran, Surah number 96. This surah consists of 19 verses. The first revelation was 19 words exactly. Here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
The first revelation, look, this is visual. Something you can see with your own eyes unless you are blind. 19 words. So we are asking, how did that happen? So what does he say? What does he say? Coincidence.
Surah 96, the first 5 verses were said to be the ones first revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. They're made up of 19 words. Count the letters. There are 76 letters, which is 19 times 4. Okay, count the letters in the entire chapter. There are 19 times 50 letters, or 285 letters in that chapter.
The last surah revealed was surah number 110, and it consists also of 19 words. Here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
So how did all of these 19s occur? By mere coincidence, or is this by a divine plan?
So the only way out for the skeptic, the unbeliever, the enemy, is to say it's a coincidence.
Another remarkable discovery. When you go through the Quran and look at every name or attribute of God mentioned, out of hundreds, you'll find that only 4 are divisible by 19. But if you look closer, the values of those 4 names corresponds exactly with the specific occurrences of the 4 words in the opening statement. There's an entire book on some of the superhuman mathematical combinations that exist just for this one statement, using some very basic data points, such as the number of letters and their numerical values. To keep it brief, let's just look at the first few facts, but note that each fact builds off of a simple template, where each word is represented with its sequence number. So instead of name, God, gracious, merciful, we put 1, 2, 3, 4, thus forming a mathematical representation of this statement. That's our basic template. So in our first example here, after each number, we insert the number of letters, and this gives us an 8-digit number divisible by 19. In our next example, instead of the number of letters, let's insert the numerical values for each word, and this gives us a 15-digit number divisible by 19. Now instead of the total numerical values, let's break it down for each individual letter. So for example, instead of 102, let's make it 2, 60, 40. And this gives us a 37-digit number divisible by 19. Now let's index each letter. This produces a 56-digit number divisible by 19. What's beautiful about these patterns is that they're consistent and based on fixed parameters that nobody gets to decide. Anyone can try and replicate the same test, but here's the odds that you would be competing with. About 1 in 7 quadrillion.
God alone. This word is mentioned in the Quran 6 times. 5 times it has to do with Allah, and 1 time with the Quran. But the 5 times you take the verses and the surahs and you add them up, and the total is 361. What's this now? 361 for the word alone. Worship God alone. This is 19 times 19. Now, listen to this. The word Quran happens 58 times. 58 is not a multiple of 19. But one of them is in Surah 10, where God says, every time you show the Quran to the disbelievers, they say, give us a Quran other than this. So it is not this Quran. So the word Quran, this Quran of God, it happens 57 times. 19 times 3. So you can see the accuracy and the intricacy. We added up all the verses where the word Quran takes place, and the total is 2660. 19 times 140. Now, the word Quran in every shape, form, or grammatical shape is found in 38 surahs. 19 times 2. If you add the number of surahs with the word Quran happens, and the number of verses, the total of the verses where the Quran takes place, the total is 2,698. 19 times 142. Does this number ring a bell? Anybody? Gatur. Exactly. This is the name. The word Allah occurs in the Quran, this total, 2,698. The evidence is piling up, and at this rate the world will end tomorrow. No, I mean something is happening. At this rate of the evidence filing and the showing that we have a book from God.
There's 30 unique numbers mentioned in the Quran, and the sum of all those numbers is 162146, a multiple of 19.
Let me add one more minute of elaboration on why this is miraculous. For example, the number 50, there's only one number 50 in the Quran. And it is written like this: Noah lived with his people 1,000 years less 50. So it was not written 950. Another place says we summoned Moses for 30 nights and increased them by 10. So you can see how the numbers being independent and how they add up to a divisible total. You're supposed to fast 3 days during Hajj and 7 days when you go home, which adds up to 10. But the Quran says that. Of course, we know 3 and 7 is 10, but that's essential to have the number 10. So you can see how the mathematical composition of Quran and how miraculous it is beyond human capability. So this miracle is growing to overwhelming proportions, and Satan knew about it. I assure you, he did everything possible in his capacity to stop it from coming out. Because now the cat is out of the bag, like they say. He can do nothing now. It's too late.
The significance of these letters remained a divinely guarded secret for 14 centuries. Traditional scholars unanimously claim that the true wisdom behind these letters are unknown. But since the Quran's miracle was destined to come after the Prophet, this prolonged uncertainty was in accordance with God's will, preserved for the technologically sophisticated generations. The very existence of these initials hint at a mathematical code. The phrase, "These are the miracles of this book," is found only in conjunction with these Quranic initials.
When you count this letter, Qaf, every time you see it, you count it. In the Quran, in this surah, you will find that the total of the letter Qaf in this surah is 57, or 19 times 3. Also, the only other surah initial with Qaf, which is surah number 42, there's the letter Qaf as an initial, contains the exact same number of Qafs as the other surah. Now, when you go back to Surah Qaf here, you notice that Qaf stands for Quran. And if you add the 57 Qaf of this Surah, number 50, plus the 57 Qaf in Surah number 42, also 57, 57 plus 57 is 114, which is exactly the same number as the surahs of Quran. You notice that the Surah Qaf is number 50, and it consists of 45 verses. If you add the number of the surah, which is 50, to the number of verses in the surah, which is 45, the total is 95, or 19 times 5. Well, this is half the story. If you go to the only other surah initiated with Qaf, which is surah number 42, you see that the number of verses is 53. And if you add the number of the surah to the number of the verses, you get exactly the same total as Surah Qaf, 95, or 19 times 5.
Throughout the Quran, the disbelievers in Lot are consistently referred to as Qawm, which has a Q. But an exception was made in chapter 50. Instead, the word Ikhwan was used, which does not have a Q. This one extra Q would have destroyed this entire phenomenon.
अब यहाँ उसने कहा इख्वान का लफ्ज लाया गया, अगर कौम का लफ्ज आता तो काफ 58 हो जाते। पूरे कुरान मजीद में हजरत लूत जिनकी तरफ भेजे गए थे उनके लिए इख्वान का लफ्ज कहीं नहीं आया, कौम का लफ्ज आया। इस सूरत में वहां कौम के लफ्ज से डेविएट करके वह इख्वान लूत व अस्हाबुल ऐकत व कौम तुब्बा, अगर वहां पर भी कौम का लफ्ज आता तो काफ वहां पर 58 हो जाते, वो उसूल जो है मैथमेटिकल टूट जाता। अब ये बड़ी कन्विंसिंग बात है।
When you go to Surah 68, which is initiated with the letter Noon, N, if you count the letter N, wherever you see it in this surah, you find that the total is 133, 19 times 7.
This chapter is also the last one with initials. Chapter 2 is the first one. Between them, for example, the number of verses between these 2 points is a multiple of 19. And the same case exists for the word God. Additionally, Prophet Jonah was not referred to by his name in this chapter, which has an N. Another interesting exception made, and it could have taken this one N to destroy the entire pattern.
One of the most important functions of the Quran's mathematical code is that it proves and authenticates by physical evidence all the miracles of the previous prophets and messengers. Moses parted the Red Sea. Jesus revived the dead and healed the hopelessly blind and the leprous, and so on. Now, these miracles are mathematically composed within the Quran and proven by this code to be true. God was the witness. His words are divine. And what he has proven by means of the ultimate miracle is that the Quran is indeed his word, the word of God.
We have 7 chapters, initial to HM. And you count these initials in the 7 chapters, and you have 2,147, or 19 times 113. 2,147. These 7 chapters are almost 1/10 of the Quran. And if you have 1 extra H or 1 extra M, this will not be a multiple of 19. It's an extremely sensitive mathematical composition. There are 3 chapters initial with the letter S, the heavy S, a capital S, Sad. And you count this letter, and you find 152 S's, which is 19 times A. ALM in chapter 2, 9,899 of them. You count the letter A, the letter M, the letter L, and the letter M, and the total is 9,899. K.
But why specifically the letter Q and the letter N and not like the letter S or the letter A?
Because each of the chapters in the Quran start with something. They have, or not each of the chapters, some of the chapters. I don't know if you read through it. It starts with like Alif Lam Mim, and you'll see other things like that in the Quran. Like, but nobody knows what it means. Nobody, no scholar, nobody knows what it means. But he's putting them all together.
So then, Muhammad read these words out. Who the hell wrote words that don't make sense?
God told him to say this. Only God knows what this means. Only God knows. Nobody knows what this means. No scholar, nobody knows what this means. But he's trying to add them all up now. And each one is essentially works together to find a divisible by 19 for whatever reason. So everything is divided by 19 for whatever reason.
But it's for some chapters, but why not all?
Because God made it like that. I don't know. You have to ask God. Some of them are different things. Like, it doesn't say that on every chapter. Some chapters have it, some don't.
But it's like you could pick any letter in a sense, right? And obviously it can equal 19. I think they had a whole movie about this where it was the number 23 and everything was adding up to the number 23.
No, but the whole point is it's did you not see where it said the chances of this happening are 1 in like quadrillion, whatever?
Yeah, but wouldn't there also be parts in there that don't even add up to 19?
Well, it depends what you're adding. Like, because he's taking everything. He's adding all the letters in the Quran, so he's not leaving anything out.
No, but he's only added N and Q. What about the rest?
He's adding he's adding what is there, what is being said. So if you go back, he's taking this stuff, whatever you see. So these start at certain chapters in the Quran. These letters are found there. These random letters, nobody knows what they mean.
Yeah, I know.
And he's putting them all together.
Why doesn't he take 26 instead of like 19 here, 38?
Because depending on the letters, he's taking specific letters and putting them together. He's like, okay, why is there an A here and an A here? What does this mean? There's an A here and an A here. What does this mean? These 2 chapters have ALM. Why don't these ones have any? So he's just taking those specific things. Because there's a reason they're there together. We don't know the reason behind it. That's the whole point. Is all these are so specifically laid out and nobody knows what it means, but he's putting them all together and he's finding that everything has a multiplier of like 19 no matter what it is. And they said the chances of that happening are 1 in 1 quadrillion, dude.
But so look, if there's ALM, ALMS, ALMR,
KHYR.
Why is it 2, 3, 7,
Yeah, because
13? Why does he select 13 and not these ones like 10, 11, 12, 14, 15?
Because look at the chapters. At the chapters 2, he's saying in the specific chapters. Chapter 2 starts with ALM, Alif Lam Mim. These are letters in the Arabic language. ALM. Chapter 3 has the same thing too. So if you go to chapter 3, it has ALM too. If you go to these other chapters, it doesn't have the same letters. They have different letters there. I won't do 403. But if you go to these chapters, you'll see them. They start ALM, Alif Lam Mim. Now if we go to 7, chapter 7, it'll say ALMS from what it says there. ALMS.
Okay.
God says this. This is God's direct word. Nobody knows what this stuff means. They're literally letters in Arabic. They're letters. It's like trying to distinguish what are these letters. But he says it at specific chapters for some reason, and nobody knows why he says it at those specific chapters. Like, why didn't he do it in like 110 instead of doing it at 2 or 3? There's a reason why.
There's like TSM then.
Those are letters. These are all letters.
But what I'm saying is that, but look, there's 26 doesn't equal 19, 27 doesn't equal 19, 28 doesn't equal 19, 29 doesn't equal, none of these equal 19, but specific ones does. It's like picking out, it's like, okay, now I'm going to pick out things that add up to 23. Okay, I'm going to pick 23 in this chapter, whatever, ALMR. I'm going to pick up 23 in this chapter, and you could probably...
No, that's not what he's doing. He's taking where they all have it, and he's adding them together. If they all have TSM. If they all have TSM in these, why would I just leave one out?
Oh,
it's like
I
if
see
you're
what's
putting
happening.
together a puzzle.
Oh, I see what's happening.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all in their group. So AMR all are found within these chapters, no other chapters.
But why is this one highlighted green? 13 for ALM.
They're all, some of them are highlighted in different colors. I think it just depends on the chapter. I don't remember the exact reasons. They put in a lot of information. But this one might have, I don't know. I actually don't know off the top of my head. Because this one is the same color as this one and this one and this one and this one, this one and this one. So I don't know the specific reason behind the color off the top of my head right now.
9,899 of them. You count the letter A, the letter M, the letter L, and the letter M, and the total is 9,899. K.
ALM, so he's adding them all up, all the verses up.
A.
So K, the letter K in this chapter occurs this many times. The letter H occurs this many times. The letter Y is this many times. And when you add them, the letter S, when you add them all together...
So you do it for each chapter.
Yes, the chapter that you see this in, essentially.
And they all equal a sum of 19 and or multiply and or divide.
Essentially, yeah. All of them for some reason.
Okay, now I'm understanding exactly what you're doing. So you just pick any number.
It took you 9 minutes or 35 minutes to see it.
We're starting halfway through.
And it has to do with the story of Mary and Jesus, the virgin birth, the miracles of Jesus, things that are normally unbelievable. And this is why God is strengthening this chapter with 5 initials. And you count them. These are distinct letters that I have in the book, the visual presentation book, with every one of these letters marked with a star so they can see for themselves. When you are feeding them the miracle with a spoon. The first book was just tables and numbers.
Now, is there a chapter with like, whatever, KLS, let's just say that's one of them, that when they add up all the letters, it doesn't equal sum of 19?
The whole point is all the chapters,
Do equal
everything,
some sort of 19.
dude, everything's equaling 19.
From
That's the
1
whole
to
point.
114.
Yeah. If you add them all together, if you add 1 to 114 together, you divide it equals
Of the
19.
letters in that.
If you add all the verses in the Quran, they equal 19. If you add all the letters in the whole book, they equal 19. Now he's going into specific chapters because they have like these mystery letters that
Which
nobody
are all
knows,
equal 19.
which all equal 19. So everything's equaling 19. Everything.
Yeah, that makes
sense. The weight starts off in the name of God, the most compassionate, most merciful. 19 letters to write that out. That whole thing. The first chapter, or from what the first revelation, 19 letters. The first chapter, 19 letters. Or, sorry, 19 words in both. So it's like, dude, why is all this stuff adding up? And the guy showed before, the chances of it happening are 1 in 1 quadrillion. Do you know how many zeros are in that?
Yeah.
Bro, that'd be like unbelievable.
Like I said, how do we know you're not lying? How do we know these numbers are correct? Consistently. Every single one of them, without exceptions. ALMS, ALR, TSM, YS. YS. YS is a surah entitled YS, surah number 36. You count the Y and the S. In this chapter, there are 285. 19 times 15. Strange things happen in the Quran. There is a letter Ya. This letter is questionable in many surahs. There are many words. Like, for example, Yatawaffakum is written with a Ya in the word that is obscure Ya. It's kind of a questionable Ya. You do not find a single questionable word in this surah. They're all the straightforward Ya. Yasin. And after the conclusion came that we shall worship God alone and uphold the Quran alone, you know how popular I am. They are dying to find a mistake. It's a blessing from God that I'm not that popular. Just received a death threat the other day. Somebody said the Saudis are going to assassinate you. Only 3 days ago. That's how popular I am. So you can imagine how eager they are to find mistakes. And you can be sure if they find one mistake, because one mistake means the whole thing collapses. And this is what I'm telling them. I said, I'll forget the whole thing if we find one mistake, because God is perfect. And His system is perfect. No wonder God calls this one of the greatest miracles.
He stubbornly refused to accept these proofs. I will increasingly punish him, for he reflected, then decided. Miserable is what he decided. Miserable indeed is what he decided. He looked. He frowned and whined, and he turned away arrogantly. He said, "This is but clever magic. This is human-made. I will commit him to retribution." What retribution? Thorough and comprehensive. Obvious to all the people. Over it is 19. We appointed angels to be guardians of hell, and we assigned their number 19 to disturb the disbelievers, to convince the Christians and Jews that this is a divine scripture, to strengthen the faith of the faithful, to remove all traces of doubt from the hearts of Christians, Jews, as well as the believers, to expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts and the disbelievers. They will say, "What did God mean by this allegory?" God thus sends astray whomever He wills and guides whomever He wills. None knows the soldiers of your Lord except He. This is a reminder for the people. Absolutely, I swear by the moon, and the night as it passes, and the morning as it shines. This is one of the great miracles. A warning to the human race, for those among you who wish to advance or regress.
عليها 19. Over it are 19. You need no interpretation, no explanation is required. 19 means 19. But how can anybody fix up anybody with 19? He said, fix you up with 19. How can he fix you up with 19? I said, very easy once you see it. While we didn't see it, we have to conjecture other guesses, somehow justify. Simple sentence like, over it are 19.
When people tell you why 19, tell them because God said so. God said it is the number 19 that will prove that the Quran is not human-made. 74:25 says, some people will say the Quran is man-made. And 74:30, God says 19 will prove to you that it is not man-made.
In the 74th chapter of the Quran, in the 30th verse, the number 19 is mentioned, and this is said to be the number of angels guarding hell. But then in the very following verse, the 31st verse of that chapter, it details why this number was mentioned. And it says that this will give the people of the book certainty, and it will increase the faith of the believers. While at the same time, those who have diseases in their hearts and those who disbelieve will be deriding this information. So there are two responses. One is that it can give us certainty and increase our faith, or somebody might say, oh, that's nothing.
Suddenly, a very long and explicit verse that specifically says the number of the angels, i.e. their number, which is a fitna, and not the angels themselves, i.e. the number 19 just mentioned. is and will do the following. It will be a fitna or trial for the non-believers. Those who have been given the scriptures, i.e. the Christians and Jews, will know for sure and without doubt, i.e. with certainty. The believers will increase in faith. Both the people of the book and the Muslims will no longer have doubt, but those who are sick in their hearts and those who wish to hide the truth or disbelievers will say, what does Allah want or intend with such an example? Basically, rejectors will say it doesn't mean anything.
That verse that details the wisdom of the number 19 comprises 19 times 3 words, or 57 words. The words in that chapter prior to this verse are 95 words, or 19 times 5. If we count the words within the first 19 verses of that chapter, they're 19 times 3, or 57 words. If we count the letters coming all the way down to just before, but not including the mention of the number 19, there are 361 letters, which is 19 squared, or 19 times 19. Did all of these 19s occur by coincidence near the mention of the number 19?
In the killing of a Tucson Muslim leader, the Rashad Khalifa. He was found murdered yesterday in his Tucson mosque.
All Muslim countries, they hate him. In the Middle Eastern countries, is not well received.
He was assassinated. They looked high and low, the final word was, but alhamdulillah, whoever did it the right way. Not telling anybody, this thing has to be done, we do it, you're the only one who knows about it. Khalifa died violently. There were reports of gunshots.
The controversial leader also said Muslims should worship God alone. Police say those beliefs may have been related to his killing.
Damn, that's crazy. Dude, that is crazy, dude. That is actually crazy.
Wait, what is 74 days between?
1974 when it was found. That was the year it was found. He found this out.
No, but what's 74 days between his...
Between November, his birthday, and the day he died.
Oh. Yeah.
That is crazy.
So do you think it's a coincidence?
Damn.
Do you think it's a coincidence or on purpose?
Do you think it was a coincidence?
No, it's for the reason that in a sense, he could have predicted in a sense when he was going to die. In a sense. If everything always adds up,
bro?
No, but I'm saying if everything always adds up to 19.
God decides, bro. God decides.
But when you start to find and click in all these coincidences, it can start clicking into...
There's no coincidence. Everything happens
No, but
for a reason.
I'm saying, well, what else? I don't know what the other word is for coincidence when it's like real, but I'm just saying, like, in a sense that...
Yeah, but it's like how many things have to be coincidence before it's real?
No, that's what I mean, right?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
the
He can
whole point
almost
of what he's
predict
saying.
it. He can almost predict when he's gonna die, in a sense.
Let me ask you, how did they predict?
Which I'm not saying that's normal for someone to predict when
You
they're
wouldn't know
die.
when you're gonna predict you're gonna
Oh,
die.
of
You get
course.
stabbed and killed to death.
Of course.
You can't predict your
that
own
also
murder.
means, obviously.
Predict when you're gonna die.
Obviously. No,
You
I
can't.
completely agree.
How did they capture him 19 years later and he was sentenced on the 19th? You think they set this up on purpose? You know, guys, we're not going to do our job. Let's just wait almost 20 years.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, in a sense, God took his life on that day on purpose.
Yes, and
Yes.
it even says right after this, it says,
Oh, I did not.
no one dies except by God's leave at a predetermined time.
Yeah.
So God decides when you die. There's a reason you die. There's a reason behind everything.
Mhm.
Whether you think it might affect you and the way it is, it's like, damn, it's like, oh, my
But this
parents
guy
died on Earth.
is the one that solved this 19.
He solved this. He figured
Yeah.
all this out essentially.
But I'm
from what
saying
it showed
he
in this
almost
video.
had the chance to be someone to predict their own death.
How? How can you predict your own death?
No,
bro?
what I'm saying is that he's someone who is probably the closest ever throughout history to predict that when he can possibly die, because he has all of this stuff that lines up.
But
you're not understanding my point.
I understand your point.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's the closest person, probably throughout history, to almost be able to predict his own death because of everything he's figured out.
But how? But it was nothing that actually.
Not that he did it. I'm just saying he's the closest person.
I get what you're saying.
Is what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying, but my point is what gain did he get off of this? What gain? It wasn't money.
No, it was a benefit.
Screwing
It was a benefit towards the world, obviously.
But you don't have to care about it. It's a
Well,
benefit to
obviously some
Muslims
people
and
don't.
stuff. Yeah. So how does it benefit anybody else? They can be like, oh, I don't believe in that. That's fine. Doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't do anything. It's not like he screwed people over for money.
But I'm
like
saying,
all the pharmaceutical
we're here. This
companies.
guy emailed you this video, and now I'm watching it. In a sense, this is the stuff that adds up, stuff that takes time.
Sure, but it's just more so around the fact you can't predict when you're gonna die, dude.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's the closest person to ever predict when he can die. In a sense, because he's
How?
had
No,
all
he
this
wouldn't know that though. Only God knows that. You think they set this up? He's like, you know what? I'm gonna get stabbed today because no, that's
You're not
impossible.
obviously not. But I'm just saying he's the closest person to ever be able to predict when someone himself can die.
That's not rational. That's not rational. Okay, prove it. How? How is that possible? That's
By
not
all- by
rational,
all these-
bro.
He figured out something new by all these coincidences, and what I'm calling it coincidence because it's everything that lines up, right? And
bro, but at what point do you stop calling it a coincidence? Basically,
well, that's what I'm just saying because I don't know if there's another word for it. I don't have big vocabulary.
Basically, fair enough. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But basically, what they're saying is this. This is basically what they're saying. In that description, through finding all this stuff lining up that perfectly, it's like you using a slot machine. Okay, you hitting this slot machine one time, and you hit 7 all the way through a quadrillion times. How, dude, like that's literally impossible, bro. That's literally impossible for that to happen.
I know, but usually when you start to get to a level, I believe in life, when you start to solve things like this, in the sense that it was almost predicted he would be assassinated. People who've got cancer medications or that figured out how to cure cancer, they die. People who it's always like when you start to do something crazy and figure something out, there's always someone that has to assassinate you or kill you or whatever.
Yo, but let's think about it like this. I
agree
with you.
As in what I say, he's the closest person to figure out that, in a sense.
But you still can't predict your own death.
Obviously not.
At all. So he's not the closest person because nobody knows when they're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. The only people that I'd say probably that know they're going to die is that they have cancer.
Yeah.
And you're on your deathbed and it's like you're dying and the doctor's like, listen, you only have 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's possible. But this guy was in fine health. He was just older. Somebody literally came in the mosque from what it looks like and stabbed him to death. Or shot him or whatever they did. They murdered him basically.
Mm-hmm.
And what gain do you actually get out of this? Most of the time when somebody kills somebody, that they screw with, most of the time, like, we know what happens in the pharmaceutical industry. If you try to come up with something that cures cancer, they'll kill you.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're making all the money. They don't want to stop making money, essentially.
Did you ever see Gray State or something? There's a movie trailer. The guy made a trailer for this movie. And it was literally just straight up about like the whole system, the politics, and almost when everyone's trying to like, in a sense, break out if there's a war of people, America. It's pretty confusing. I think it was called Gray State. But he pretty much proved the entire system in his movie trailer. And he was going to release this movie, he was making this movie. Guy got assassinated, kids got hanged, and like something happened. Or no, he hanged himself. Kids got all killed from this guy, whatever. But it was obviously a setup, right? So that's what I'm saying. There's specific things that when you start to really solve stuff, you can almost assume that you're probably going to get killed.
No, but my point is this. He never attacked the world in a sense. He never screwed over the world or people.
Neither have people who made a movie. Neither have people who helped with cancer.
No, but that movie, he was probably going to expose something there.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
That's
So there's a reason.
So he's
why
almost
they killed
exposing
him.
something
But
with this.
But what is he exposing? He's
showing-
realizing something.
Yes, exactly.
But
Something
you don't have to believe in it.
Oh, of course. Well, man, no one has to believe in a religion. No one has to believe in anything.
Of course.
No one
So
has to
why
believe
does
they're human.
So why does that matter at all in any sense? He's not making any money off of it. nothing really happened. It's more so for us, but God obviously tells us, he's like, this code 19 will essentially remove any doubt from Christians, Jews, whatever. But you guys can completely disregard it. Be like, I don't believe in this at all, so on and so forth. So you don't have to believe in that, is what I'm saying. So why would they target him if nothing, it's like, no, it's fine, it's whatever, it's something I discovered.
Well,
Why him?
We know who runs the world, so like they're obviously gonna be, they're full of Satanists, so obviously they're gonna be fucking trying to stop shit like this.
No,
in a sense.
I agree with you, but they have way more better things to do. They rather,
Not
I guarantee
really.
you,
You know how many people, if stuff like this went out more, like it only has 20,000 views, right? But if stuff like this went out more, it would really start like, it probably, like if this video had,
but what is
it only
this?
has 20,000
Let me
views,
ask
if
you
it had
something.
100 million views, how many people do you think would convert after watching something like this? Probably a lot.
Dude, but
You
this-
would think.
You would
right?
think, but doesn't mean that they will, is the whole point.
But I'm saying your probability goes higher. From 20,000 people who've seen this, let's say 10 of them. But now when we go to 100 million, that's like 10,000, whatever the math is.
Sure, but...
And I'm saying, that's why they assassinate people like this, because they don't want people seeing stuff like this.
So do you believe this?
I think it's very actually interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
So you'll become Muslim?
Well, I don't know if I'll become Muslim. but I'm very interested. It
No,
takes
I'm just
time,
saying-
bro. Dude, I want to do this video. It's 3 months for you. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
No, I
you know?
no, I agree. Like, I see what you're saying, but my point is you don't have to believe in it. Like, somebody can put something out there, and you can be like, oh, I believe in this, or oh, I don't believe in this. And at the same time, he's not screwing anybody over. I guarantee
Obviously not.
they're more worried about losing money than they are about something like this coming into light, whatever, making people religious. I guarantee you they're more worried about losing money. And that's clearly where everybody's, all these companies' aspects are. If it destroys their faction for money, they'll try to find a way to screw everybody over.
Obviously.
Why do you think, do you know how many billions of dollars have been donated towards cancer and they still haven't found a cure? Do you really think they're actually using the money for that? No, because it just goes in the pockets of most of these people. That's just the reality of it.
I know someone who works at a charity, and it's this girl, she's like, I'd say around 24 years old, and she works for a charity, and apparently she gets paid $70 an hour, and it was for like, I forgot what charity it was, but she's like, oh yeah, like if someone donates $1 million, probably around 50,000 goes towards whatever, because she says in the statements, she's literally 24 years old making $70 an hour, right? Just working for a charity. So it's like,
I'm not surprised.
oh yeah, no, the charity, I think a lot of charities are bullshit. It's hard to find real ones, right?
I'm not surprised. But the reality is, this is the difference. As a Muslim, let's say you have like a Muslim charity, you know that God's gonna judge you. If he sees that you took money, because like, dude, that's really bad. Like, you're never supposed to touch the money of like a poor person or orphan or anything. If he saw you take that money, you're gonna have to answer to him. He's gonna call you up on judgment day. You can't hide anything from him. He knows every thought you ever had, any intention you ever had, everything. And he'll be in front of the world where he's asking you these questions. And how embarrassing would it be to try to lie against God that knows everything about you?
Well, if you're dead, I don't think it'd be too embarrassing.
No, he'll resurrect everybody the day of judgment.
Well, everyone comes back alive?
Yeah, everybody comes
What
back
is
to
the-
life. No
like
matter
their
what.
head crushed.
Doesn't matter. Even
so
if
they
you're
come back with their head
cremated.
crushed.
Remember that one chapter?
Do they come back with a head crushed, or it's like the souls?
No,
inside?
he'll recreate everything again. You'll be back in your original self, no matter what you are.
What if you're trapped in a casket, sealed closed?
Dude,
in 6
he'll rise from the ground. He'll lead everybody to the same place. Do you not remember when we were watching that one with the random Suda? And I told you, even your fingertips, he'll recreate your fingertips.
Yeah, I remember that.
So even if you're cremated, he'll recreate you again. And you're going to have to answer to him.
That's when it's decided to go to hell or heaven.
Yeah, you're going to have a conversation
So
with
what,
them.
I know there was purgatory, but so
Or
what
judgment,
happens,
not even the conversation.
What I know there's purgatory, but what happens for the people who ended up dying?
What do you mean end up dying? Everybody's going to answer. Everybody in history ever is going to answer. Everybody. Even your hands are going to talk for all the things you did with your hands and your feet and your ears and everything.
Will everyone become conscious again?
Will you ever become conscious again? That's for God to know. But to be honest with you,
because if you're coming back,
your soul
he knows
has
the truth.
energy.
He knows the truth. Yeah, I know that, but he knows
everything
about you. So do you think some people are gonna try to, in a sense, walk up and lie? Which obviously he'll know, but I'm saying, do you think some people?
Of course.
So then that's the conscious self.
No, but
You know what I'm saying?
But he knows. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So
I don't know. I don't know how
he
it's
has a conscious self, because if it was more like a subconscious, and you know that he knows everything, and now I just got resurrected. I'm about to do.
Dude, he tells you he's literally gonna recreate you. So based off what he's saying there, yes, he'll literally make you into you, and you're gonna have to walk up there, and you're gonna have to answer him. He's gonna ask you in front of the whole world. He'll embarrass people in front of the whole world for anything you did in your life, and you can't lie to him because he knows every intention you ever had ever. So it's a little different when you're running a charity as a Muslim, because you know these people. You know God will be like, I gave you this to run, to help these people, and you screwed over everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You think God would be okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
You think God would be cool with that?
Yeah.
Just knowing that mentally, do you know how much mentally that would drain on your head? Knowing
Does
you
it
did
say
something like
embarrassment?
that? Yeah, he says he'll like embarrass people and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it's almost conscious. You can
Yeah,
kind of
like-
come to the conclusion people are coming back
Basically,
conscious.
yeah, like he will like ridicule people.
Because if he talks about embarrassment, he talks about he'll know people kind of he knows everything about people, but then he also talks about that some people probably are gonna walk up and lie.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
the conscious, normal self that's gonna do that.
Dude, he's gonna ask people, or not people, sorry. People are gonna ask other people when it happens. They're gonna ask other people like, "Yo, please save us! Like, please save us." They're gonna go to Satan, like that one chapter we read. Hey, Satan, please save us! Go tell him something like, "Please save us! Please save us!" They're gonna go. From what I remember, is they go to the prophets. They go to Moses first, and they're like, "Please start judgment day."
So
Like, please.
Moses would be in that crowd.
Yeah, everybody's gonna be there, bro. Every single person
What about
ever,
Jesus?
bro. Everybody. Jesus is there too. And Jesus gonna then Allah's gonna ask Jesus.
What about angels? Like who's next to God? Or
And
just
God and
everyone
angels,
comes down?
everybody's gonna be there basically.
No, I know that, but angels are selected from people. no?
Alongside humans, there's jinn, which are spirits. They're gonna be there too. They live in a parallel reality to us, right? And they're gonna be there too.
Jinn bad or good?
Some can be bad, some can be good, like humans. But jinn can like possess people and do things like that. Yeah. So like we believe in that, of course. Like black magic and stuff, you stay away from that stuff. You don't touch that stuff because God says like it's real. Anyways, but yeah,
What about
God.
like schizophrenia? Do you think jinn in a sense would cause?
I have no idea.
Like, is that?
That's probably mental. I don't know. Probably mental illness. I don't think that's jinn, but
So
like
it's nothing with that.
you won't know something's a jinn unless they reveal themselves. If somebody says I'm a jinn, then you know, like, dude, you gotta be very careful. Like, you don't even.
But who the hell is just gonna tell you I'm a jinn?
You'd be surprised, bro. Like, people, there's videos on YouTube you can see. There's street interviews I've seen.
And people just say I'm a jinn.
Yeah, they're like, yeah. They'll just say
So in
whatever.
a sense, it's
I've
like
even heard
parallel world that's speaking through them.
Essentially, they're possessed in a sense,
Mhm.
and they're spirits. Yeah, and then they even say jinn can possess. There's a hadith that says jinn can possess dogs, specifically black dogs. And there was a story in the news a few years ago. It was actually kind of crazy that this guy murdered a bunch of people, and he was saying his dog was telling him to, which is kind of really crazy. Like thinking back.
Black dog, I assume.
Black dog, yeah. That's why, like, you're not supposed to have dogs in your house or anything. You can have them outside and stuff. But black
Against
dogs.
your religion?
Yeah, you
No
can't
way.
have dogs. Yeah, the
What
reason
about
is
cats?
cats are okay. Dogs you can't because from like scientific research, this is kind of what I know, is their saliva can make you sick. Like an actual.
Well, I know people
give you
got
diseases.
amputated from dog
Yeah.
bites. All if they
yeah.
have a bite in their arm, all their limbs are getting amputated.
Yeah, they that's a reason. Their saliva is not like pure like cats. Like
So
cats
what about-
clean themselves and stuff like that, so you can have a cat. You're not
But I
supposed to
have
have a
allergies
dog
to
in your
cats.
house.
I have allergies to cats.
Well, you don't have to have a cat, but you're as a Muslim, you can have a cat in your house. You can have a dog if they're kept outside, and there's another reason too. If they're for like shepherds and stuff like that.
You know what I'm curious about?
So that's it. Damn, that was an amazing video. Thank you, Jonathan, for sending in that email and that video. This one was actually amazing. This is one I've never heard about at all. From like all my research or anything, nobody brings it up because I think it's so in depth and there's a lot of layers to it. But man, that was awesome. Thank you for sending that in. But yeah, I don't know if you have any questions. But dude,
no.
Let's see. One quadrillion in numbers. This is the chances of this essentially happening in the book. It's 1 followed by 15 zeros, bro.
Mhm.
So imagine Imagine a slot machine and pulling down that thing once. You
Yeah.
only get one chance, and it goes 777 all the way through 1 quadrillion times. That's literally impossible, bro. That's literally impossible.
Jackpot.
That's literally impossible. But yeah, that's
Depending how much you play the casino.
Huh?
Depending how much you play the casino.
Well, we can't. Gambling's wrong. But I'm just saying as the example, like the chances of that happening, like visualizing that.
Yeah.
You can barely get 3. You think you're gonna get 1 trillion? That's my whole point. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you to Jonathan for sending over the email in this video. It's actually amazing. I really appreciate that. We never heard of it before. And I hope Allah guides us all, and you guys all have a great day, and be safe out there.